Order, if everyone would please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. To the flag of the United States of America, and to the republic stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. It sounds so much better with a full room. May I get a roll call, please?
Alderman Galloway, Alderman Gardner, Alderman Hudson. We have 6 aldermen present. We have quorum.
All right, perfect. Has everybody had a chance to review the minutes of September 7th and September 16th? And if so, are there any amendments that need to be made and or a motion for approval? Motion was made by Alderman Campbell, second by Alderman Galloway. Pardon me, to approve the minutes of September 7th and September 16th as presented. All those in favor? It's unanimous. All right, perfect. There are no ceremonial matters. We do have a couple of scheduled visitors here. One of them being on Zoom, and I don't know if I'll pronounce the name right, but Glenn Eidman. Did I get it? I nailed it. Perfect. Representing the Missouri Police Chiefs Charitable Foundation. I'll turn the floor over to Glenn.
Thank you very much. Can everyone hear me okay?
Yes, sir.
Thank you for having me. Just a quick note. During COVID, it was very difficult to continue doing accreditation, and the Ozark Police Department went above and beyond what they needed to do to get this done. So they literally copied and scanned everything, put it on a jump drive and sent it to me in St. Louis. So I had the opportunity to review things. So with that being said, we also had somebody come out and do an on-site. This is a uniquely difficult time in law enforcement, as you all know. Many cases of social injustice have dominated the news, causing protests, riots, and tension between the communities and their police departments. The pandemic has set the stage for a sincere loss of confidence in city, state, and federal governments, as you all know. Ensuring confidence in the police department to the general public and those that we serve daily is transparency, professionalism, policies, and procedures that result in performance that delivers fairness and equity to all. Best practices will put law enforcement on the road to accreditation. This obviously is a difficult task requiring leadership, accountability, and a dedication to stay the course by completing an accreditation model and the operational policies. The establishment of an ethical environment, as well as creating a level of accountability and transparency that will in fact promote a better relationship between the police and the community. When the decision was made to begin the accreditation process for the Ozark Police Department, this is their second accreditation. This is their first re-accreditation. When that decision was made to begin the accreditation process, which is a very daunting task, many agencies struggle to ensure that they stay focused and actually complete the process. The MPCA, Missouri Police Chiefs Charitable Association, has created an accreditation program that has 208 standards that are based on best practices on policies and procedures for the agencies and their officers. Accreditation creates, promotes, and highlights the why being a police officer is a career, not just a job, requiring ownership, sacrifice, and honor. It requires a buy-in and accepting ownership in this profession. On May 26, 2021, the Ozark Police Department had their on-site, which involved a tour of the building, a review of the booking process and evidence room. The tour continued with the communications and the administrative area. Obviously, your communications was a little bit different, but we were able to capture that. After a deep dive into the policies and an interview with the chief, the accreditation manager, and others, it was my pleasure to recommend to the Missouri Board of Police Executives to award full accreditation to the Ozark, Missouri Police Department. Effective today, September 20th, 2021, the Ozark Police Department is recognized as an accredited agency once again. This does not mean that the process is over. The process continues all over again for the next accreditation cycle that will begin immediately. I would also like to acknowledge the hard work of the accreditation manager, deputy chief, Captain Derek Hill, Lieutenant Kevin Boyce, Lieutenant Jared Dry, and Chief Justin Arnold for their hard work and forethought to complete this process. Throughout the process, myself and the assessors were met with kindness, respect, courtesy, and a complete desire to get this task done. Also, I recommend and recognize the mayor, the Board of Aldermen for supporting the efforts of the police department, as well as having the vision it takes to achieve something of this magnitude. Congratulations to all.
Is that it?
That's all I have unless somebody has a question.
Anybody have any questions for our guest? Yes. Yes, please.
Glenn, thanks for your time. I appreciate it. Thank you all for having him. I don't have a big speech, but I do want to reiterate the hard work of Captain Derek Hill, Lieutenant Jared Dry. The chief can only do so much, and so when we have professionals like that who really push through to get something achieved, it's a really good thing. And I can take all the credit for myself, but really the burden was really carried by these two right back here. So I really appreciate what they do. I appreciate the chairman of the foundation for working through us through this tough time because, like Mr. Adams said, it was a very difficult process with COVID restrictions and other things like that were in place. So I appreciate your time. I appreciate you all. Do you all have any questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah,
How many other communities in our area have this accreditation?
So as far as the Missouri Police Chiefs accreditation, there's no one else in Southwest Missouri unless I'm speaking wrong. Springfield PD is accredited through CALEA. As far as through the state certification, which we belong to, there's really no one else in Southwest Missouri, to my knowledge, that is accredited.
You're correct. There's about 65 agencies across the state that are accredited to the state of Missouri.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, gentlemen.
thank you, sir.
Amen.
Congratulations to you, Chief, for making sure that everything was done and done well, and your entire department. We appreciate your efforts to help keep Ozark great. All right, show me Christian County, Andrea Sites.
So we're good now?
We're good.
All right. Good evening, everyone. Always look forward to giving you the update on the workings of our organization on behalf of the city of Ozark. So as I work my way through the report that's in front of you, I want to highlight the work that's done for your community specifically. This past month, I had a consultation with a client looking to open clinics across Christian County and throughout the region for health and wellness and also a primary family physician. So they are looking at a facility in Ozark as well as Sparta for Christian County. We hosted TPMA, Thomas P. Miller and Associates out of Indianapolis, and we hosted their organization September 1st through the 3rd for the market study in which they are completing to look at Ozark as a viable destination for either distribution or e-commerce. So that full report should be done for you within the next month, and we look forward to bringing you the results. For regional projects, we did receive a lead for a Project Sunshine, which we are very competitive as far as Christian County. We did receive sites from Ozark as well as Highlandville, Nixa, Sparta, and Billings. So this was a really great project seeking 10 to 15 acres with a potential capital investment of $100 million and the potential of 200 job prospects. Then as we go forward to workforce development and attraction, the Springfield Business Journal hosted their economic growth survey in which they decided to highlight last week the specific Highway 65 corridor. So we were requested by SBJ and then also Meridian Title as the premier sponsor for that event to discuss opportunities for growth on Highway 65 and what that would look like as they wanted to pursue opportunities in this region. It was great to bring that voice forward and have followed up on discussions since from that event. If you go down to Prepared Communities and Networking, it was a pleasure pleasure to host, in cooperation with the Ozark Chamber and the Nixa Chamber, the 4x4 Brewing groundbreaking in Fremont Hills, and that is truly an asset that will bring great memories to our entire region. If you continue down under communities and legislative relations, we are fostering a relationship with a tourism developer that is proven in the region from Southwest Missouri as a whole. So this developer has done 5 different attractions throughout Southwest Missouri, and they are interested in opportunities in Christian County. We are continuing those discussions on any incentives that may be eligible. Right now, he's just seeking information, so we were able to provide all of the demographics and land information that he requested, and are continuing to follow up on that relationship. And before I hit under operations and administrative, I'll go over to the business retention and expansion report that you have as the second page in your document. For that, this past month, Mrs. Evans and the Strong Business Council met with an industrial services business that employs 35 to 50 employees in Ozark. In addition, they have scheduled the first business walk that is a collaboration with our chamber partners and our business counselors across the county. And to Mr. Russell's credit, in Nixa, he actually selected Nixa. So we're going, or not Nixa, Clever. So we're going to Clever for our first business walk, and I thought that that was a great testament to the regional collaboration that's there. Under the aggregate feedback, this past month, the 2 issues from our existing business owners that really rose to the surface were physical limitations as they look to expand within the county, both the cost of land they saw as being prohibitive, that was listed both for our anchor communities, and then infrastructure challenges, which we know full well. Internet service always rises to the top as our businesses either looking to expand remotely or expand their services. They find internet service, both the reliability and the build out, very costly and not really friendly for their business structure. Under outreach, we were pleased to host as a presenting sponsor for the E3 Women's Conference that's hosted by SCORE in Southwest Missouri. Mrs. Evans put together that keynote presentation and brought forward the voice of business continuity, speaking on what the risks, interruptions, disasters, and predicting the future could be for the resiliency in that sector. Our print ad went live for the Site Selection magazine, and that was for the Missouri Guide. So that publication goes out and is good for 2 years. And we did a full page plus a third specifically purchased in the workforce and talent attraction section of the Missouri Guide magazine. We are also right now meeting with marketing firms, and we'll soon be launching both a billboard ad and then also a regional campaign through social and other outlets, really establishing and creating awareness for Show Me Christian County and the resources that we provide all of our communities. And then lastly, in the last 2 weeks, we were able to be present and represent Show Me Christian County and all of our municipalities at the Governor's Conference for Economic Development hosted in Kansas City. And then last week, the Community Leadership Visit hosted by the Springfield Chamber. What was very unique about this year's Community Leadership Visit is that we had an introspective view, and we actually visited our home. So we stayed in Springfield for 3 days, and definitely a credit to the Springfield Chamber and our regional partners. We spent an entire afternoon at the Ozark Mill and Finley Farms, where we discussed entrepreneurship, where we discussed young professionals making an impact in this area, and then we got to tour the farms and hear directly from Mrs. Stack and her team at Finley Farms. And I will tell you, she did a phenomenal job at selling her experience and sharing what that was like to develop in Ozark, and spoke very highly to the 80+ leaders in our region about the Dark Skies Initiative and the work that's been done by this city and by your board to really preserve the history and the culture. So those communications resonated very well, and it resulted in several business follow-up and opportunities for these leaders that are looking to expand and are really now looking at Ozark and Christian County to do so. And we're following up on those relationships. Lastly, the only thing that I want to mention to you is the communications that we've had with Missouri State University and their graduate level program. So this is where we get to partner with a grad project, and they are working on the incentives resource guide for Ozark and Nixa as well, making sure that we have the behind the scenes work for the staff to support their efforts as we work to further these developments. So that's just the work that we're engaging. Happy as always to answer any questions that you may have. It's a pleasure to serve the city of Ozark. Yes, sir.
On the aggregate feedback of issues that were talked about for Christian County, infrastructure challenges dictate alternate routes for large vehicles in Ozark.
Yes.
Can you expand on that?
Yes, so the vendor, the business owner that they went and met with does a portion of distribution as part of their business, and so where they are located is not necessarily friendly to truck traffic. So not having it build out more out of road connectivity and easy access to Highway 65 is something that is prohibiting them for really continuing to grow in their space. So we're kind of looking through future opportunities for that. And I'm happy to elaborate if you want me to continue, but that's where the comment came from.
And then I noticed that cost of access to fiber prohibitive. This is on the internet service, even to commercial districts, Nixa and Ozark. That actually surprises me. I thought that Nixa was kind of ahead of the game on internet connectivity.
So they were one of the very first gig cities with their partnership through Centlink. That fiber is still there and present, but what we're finding for any new development that's there, it's also a customer service game. So if they have existing service, working with these very large companies, we're hearing from our business owners that the rates are very turbulent. It's not easy to work through that process, and ultimately, if they want to expand or upgrade their service, it's very cost prohibitive for them to do so.
I mean, is the feedback, focusing on Ozark, is the feedback directed towards any one particular carrier? I know they're one predominant one.
It's actually been in all three of the larger carriers, and we're just trying to work and fill those challenges. Being large national companies, it's hard to control that, and so when it's eligible, we provide them a list of any alternatives if they request it. But other than that, we just try to give the feedback to our city leaders and then to the government relations affairs teams for both of those organizations, or all three of those organizations.
Okay, so you're just telling us this needs to improve.
It's an issue, yes, sir.
Thank you.
My pleasure. Any other questions?
Mr. Gardner?
Yeah.
Yes, on internet service, a different question, but along those lines. A year or so ago, the Governor Parsons allocated a lot of funds for broadband in rural areas.
Yes.
And I know that Double High Speed got lots of that money to expand. And now all of a sudden I see them expanding in two subdivisions and one arterial street within the city limits of Ozark. And I'm just curious because I didn't think that was the intention of the money.
Yeah.
That it was supposed to be rural areas.
Yes, so great clarification. Their expansion within city limits or near those areas is not tied to the USDA rural broadband grant funds. If they go into a subdivision and survey and receive a certain percentage of commitments from those residents, then they have the justification to do that build out at their cost.
Okay. All right, thank you.
My pleasure. Any other questions?
Thank you very much. All right, we'll move into first reading bills and resolutions. Mr. Flores. Motion was made by Alderman Flores, seconded by Alderman Campbell. Place bill number 329 on its first reading by title and description only. All those in favor?
An ordinance amending the zoning code and official map by changing the zoning classification of certain property located at 1752 South 16th Avenue.
All right. Mr. Smith.
Yes, the applicant has requested a rezone of property is currently zoned C2 commercial office warehouse. The comprehensive plan does note the property as commercial based on its existing zoning. It is an undeveloped vacant piece of land at this time. In looking at the surrounding uses in this property, staff did recommend approval along with this being in compliance with those uses. Liberty Electric is also in Empire District. They are housed across the street in the old ambulance facility. They're looking to develop this site as a use for support to their facilities and it would be used as a storage facility for the materials. Based on that, the reasoning for rezoning this property to office warehousing to accommodate that use. Like I said, it's based on staff's findings and report. Staff did recommend approval. The Planning and Zoning Commission also recommended approval. There was no opposition noted at the staff, to the staff before the meeting and at the Planning and Zoning meeting. You happy to answer any questions that the applicant representative is here.
Any questions? Ms. Gardner, your line is on. Are you? No, mine is. Okay. Mr. Campbell?
One thing just for clarification, on the 5th page, which is the application page, I noticed the amendment number is 2021-491. And then whenever you go over one more page, or this page right here, it's short now, it's got a different application number on it. Or amendment number, whatever the right way to say that is.
Yeah, I'm not sure what page you're on.
The 5th, that would be the application page.
Of the staff report, okay.
The first one.
It may just be a typo. My 5th page starts out with the overlay districts.
That was it you just passed. It's about 3 sheets back. Go back. Yeah, right there.
Okay, that's the first page of the staff report. The second page would be that chart. First and second.
Okay. Okay, well, the application page, which is, go back. That one right there. Okay. That page right there.
2021-491.
Yes, go to the next page, Steve, at the bottom of that picture. No, down. Yeah. Okay, that's referred to.
Okay.
That's listing it as 490.
Yeah, that was, just be a typo. That was carried over from the last report, would be a typo. And then, so the
491 is correct.
The 491, I believe, would be correct. Yes.
Then I had one more thing. I know we plan on using this just for storage. But with us changing the zoning to office warehouse, and I don't know if it may be something we need to go back to the office warehouse zoning and change, but it strikes me odd that there's no setbacks on the side yards. But theoretically, somebody could move in next door to it and build from property line to property line, and how would the fire truck get to the back of the building?
That's something we had noticed on looking at another application, but you're correct. In the ordinances and setbacks, the side yard is 0. And that's something we are proposing to bring at some point with another amendment.
I think that's a good idea.
Okay.
All right. Are there any other board questions, comments concerning this bill? No. Is there anyone in the audience here to speak on this bill? Hearing none. Is there anyone currently on Zoom? Zoom is closed. Okay. All right. Well, if there are no other additional comments regarding this bill, then we call over to the next legislative session. Back to Mr. Flores.
Place bill 3300.
Motion was made by Alderman Flores, second by Alderman Poston to place bill number 3300 on its first reading by title description only. All those in favor?
An ordinance authorizing the issuance of a conditional use permit for property located at 6100 North Cabinet Drive.
Mr. Smith.
Yes, this application is in the Deerbrook Industrial Development. Based on the industrial zoning, it does require a storage of bulk propane storage to be approved through a conditional use process. So prior to staff even receiving an application and take it for consideration, we do have to go through the public process of getting a conditional use approved for that consideration. And that's as identified by the ordinance section 405.360C1 of the industrial ordinance. And basically, in staff's findings and staff report, staff did recommend approval. The Planning and Zoning Commission also recommended approval as well. There was no opposition provided to staff prior to those meetings or at the Planning and Zoning Commission. Once and if approved as a conditional use, then staff could proceed with evaluating this for
a building permit for the applicant to proceed with the improvements on this property. Currently, the property is just a gravel vacant lot that is all security fenced in from a primary use of that, or a previous use of that property. Happy to answer any questions. This may be a question for the owner. Escapes, it's a vapor. Is that correct? Can be. How is that contained? I know how liquids are contained. I've built when I was superintendent for the construction of the jet fuel facility of the new Springfield Branson Airport. But how is the vapor contained? If you do have a vapor leak.
If you wouldn't mind giving your name and address, please.
Okay, my name is Ken Metcalf, and my address is 4362 West 2nd Street, Battlefield 65619.
Thank you, sir.
So in the storage of compressed gas like this, what we do is it is stored as a liquid, and it will turn from a liquid to a gas and back to a liquid within the tank constantly. So when the way that these tanks are set up, the primary concern is liquid loss. A vapor loss is not as big a safety concern as a liquid loss. The liquid loss, a gallon of liquid can expand 272 times. So if, for example, if the propane tank at your home were to experience a grass fire, it has a relief valve on top of the tank. And so as the fire approaches the tank and heats the tank, the heat impingement on the tank will cause the contents to boil and increase the pressure in the tank. There's a relief valve on top of the tank, and the purpose of the relief valve is to allow the tank to cool itself. So anytime that heat is applied to a liquid that's stored above its boiling point, it wants to be cooled down, so the pressure goes up. So in this instance, what would happen is the vapor would be released in an upward direction, and if it doesn't have an ignition source within 25 feet, it's going to dissipate. So it's going to be assimilated into the atmosphere very quickly. So for that reason, the number one thing that we are concerned with is liquid, is a liquid spill. Okay. And that actually brings up another question on my part. Okay. And I see no problem with this going on. I just want to understand it better. So NFPA 58, Code 58, actually, I think it's in Chapter 7, it calls for 35 feet distance from an ignition source. I don't know if it's different than you said 25. Well, NFPA says 35. Right, and I wasn't specifically addressing the code. Okay. What I'm looking at is the ignition source. Whenever we have a transfer point, a liquid transfer point, 25 feet is typically what we're doing. Okay. And so we are designing one of these plants. We need 50 feet, from any buildable property line because of the heat that could occur if we're building berms. And so it's not so much to protect the building from the tank, it's to protect the tank from the building. Okay. So along those lines, here again, we've got side yard setbacks from 0. Theoretically, well, this is conditional use, so it may be a little bit different. But I feel like we need to, in this bill, I feel like we need to build some more setbacks. The NFPA would say 35 feet from the next property line. Source, I'm sorry, which could be right on the fence of the next property line, theoretically. But how can we go about, and this may be a question for the mayor or somebody else, maybe even the attorney general, how can we go about making sure that we're far enough off of these property lines and we're on the fence, whichever one's closer, that we don't risk having an ignition source closer than it should be.
this industrial zoning, it is a side yard of 20 feet of setback, and that is our, what I would say, our default zoning or our setback for buildings. So when something specific like this, once it gets into plan review, I know the fire marshal has already reached out to us and he's going to be looking at this one closely, but they will also do their own review before we permit this, make sure it meets the additional setbacks, such as the NFPA that you're referencing. So again, this would be just a default minimal setbacks for a building, but if it's something more unique and specific, and there's additional requirements over that, then it would be designed and accommodated for those setbacks, if additional. So you feel like we're covered on? I feel like we're covered, and since this is just the conditional use for us to even consider that, then that'll be the next phase of the application for the staff to consider and circulate out for plan review of those setbacks. Okay. And just as an FYI, the ambulance district has already reached out as well, just so they can kind of be involved with this, knowing that they're across the street from this property. I'm pretty comfortable with that. The other thing I've got is similar to the last bill that was introduced. On the application sheet, should be conditional use 2021. Is that what you're going to refer to? That top? Yeah, where it says 2020. Yeah, it should be 2021. Yeah. Okay. Would you like for us to start sending these for a cursory review? That is just a typo. Yeah, if I catch it, it's not. I don't go through there looking for every word, but if I do have to catch it, I do. I believe Cameron set it up just to see if we can figure it out. Okay, yeah. I will be honest, those do tend to get lost sometimes because we're focusing on the primary information in the packet. We can gloss through that title pretty quickly, just not paying that close of attention. That's all right.
Anyone else? All right. Are there anyone in the audience here to speak on behalf of this bill? There's no one on Zoom. That being said, we'll hold this bill over till the next legislative session. Mr. Campbell.
I make a motion we place bill number 3301 on its first reading by title and description only.
Second. Motion was made by Alderman Campbell, second by Alderman Poston. Place bill number 3301 on its first reading by title and description only. All those in favor?
An ordinance amending the municipal code of the city of Ozark, Missouri, section 215, 2210, possession, sale, and discharge of fireworks.
All right, I believe you have the lead on this bill.
Yes.
Go right ahead.
I will walk you through the ordinance changes. They are reflected with underline being language added, stricken language is shown as stricken, and then they should be colored to easily follow the tracked changes. In the first paragraph, A1, this paragraph generally regulates the times that fireworks may be discharged within the city limits of Ozark. You'll see some modifications to those times. It removes July 2nd and July 5th. On July 3rd, the time frame has been expanded to make it go through 1 a.m. on July 4th. And the time frame is amended on July 4th to limit it to 10 o'clock p.m. Moving down to A to B, regulating when fireworks may be sold, you'll notice some changes related to those time frames. It is amended to allow fireworks to be sold June 20th through July 4th, 8 a.m. through 10 o'clock p.m., and December 20th through January 1st, 8 a.m. to 10 p.m. p.m. The 10 o'clock p.m. time frame, my understanding on the rationale of that is the 10 o'clock p.m. time frame that they may be fired or discharged on the 4th. So it is reflective of that same time frame. The drafter of the ordinance may explain the reasoning behind some of that after I get done walking you through the changes, but my understanding is that the time frames would be consistent. On the next page, we have some new paragraphs. Paragraph C paragraph B is not being amended, but I do want to point out that that paragraph requires a special event permit if there is a public display, like a large organization is going to have a firework event, and that then triggers the need to go to the chapter related specifically to special events. Paragraph C has been added. This paragraph requires written consent of all property owners if the discharge of fireworks is within 200 feet of a residential dwelling or a commercial building. It specifies how the distance will be measured. It is going to be measured from the point of discharge to the closest point of the building. And this, you'll notice there's nothing where this is requiring that this written permission be submitted, but it would be utilized then if somebody issued a complaint, then they can show that they had received the consent of the neighbors, and it would counteract that type of issue, potentially. Paragraph C becomes paragraph D, and then we have a new paragraph E. Paragraph E adds language that addresses the concern related to fireworks debris, making a requirement that any person who's going to be discharging fireworks has a duty to clean up any debris from that discharge. And then they also must at least make an offering to clean up any sort of fireworks debris that would go onto private property surrounding it. But it does not encourage trespass, just the offer be made, and then they can obviously be allowed onto the property. The last paragraph that's been added is paragraph F, which it just refers back to our general penalty section to allow that any violation of this ordinance be issued a citation through our general penalty laws. With that, I'm happy to answer any questions about the general language, but again, with the intent, I would encourage a question be addressed to the sponsor of the bill.
Just a second, I believe the sponsor of the bill wanted to give an explanation before questions are asked. All right, we can do that. Mr. Gardner?
Yeah, just a question on the new paragraph C, where the 200-foot restriction, does that override the times? In other words, on the previous page, it allows the times when they can be discharged, but they can only discharge it during those times if they have permission within 200 feet. Is that correct? Okay, so
Use the complaint. So when you have a complaint such as peace disturbance, or in this instance fireworks being discharged, they would receive a signed complaint, and then the prosecutor has that individual as their primary witness. So in the example you gave, if you were the complaining party and you signed the document, then the person who's issued the citation would have that signed document. You as the complainant would also be listed on the form that the police receive when they go to the scene, and then the prosecutor would have to weigh whether you would be a competent witness to testify as to why you gave consent and then changed your mind. They will be in the municipal division of the 38th Circuit, which is no different than, it's just a different courthouse they will be in. So we have always been a division of the circuit court.
My question was about paragraph C as well. The 200 foot, it's from the dwelling itself or the building itself that's on the property. The only thing I was wondering about that is there, when you have to measure that out, you'd have to be on someone's property to measure it. So I didn't know if one, I wanted to make sure I understood that, and then two, identify exactly how far they are from the structure. Question.
All right, who wants to answer? Because everybody's lights are on and I can't cycle through them, so just speak up loud enough for everybody to hear.
this mainly is going to apply in subdivisions.
Okay. Chances are it's going to be if I'm going to shoot up fireworks, I would go to the neighbor behind me. Anybody's property that touches my property, I would go to them. I would go to the neighbors to each side of me, and then possibly the neighbor across the street if it's within a couple hundred feet. And I wouldn't just walk up there and start measuring from their house, you know. But I would go to the door and knock on the door. It's primarily for subdivisions, because I don't think subdivision lots that aren't about 100 foot wide anyway to start with. You would go up to the door, ask for, tell them what you're doing, stuff like that, get their signed permission. The reason this was put in the bill is because we've had people have voiced, I'm going to call them complaints, that might not be the right word, that they shoot bottle rockets, they land on my roof. I think the mayor even had one land on his roof or something like that. So this is to address that. It's to stay 200 feet away. It's also to address PTSD. If we have anybody with post-traumatic stress syndrome, I feel like you're far enough away that 2 or 3 houses down, I would hope if somebody was in their house that it wouldn't disturb them. It's basically for your next door neighbors, and I guess if you're real close, possibly for the next house down. That's the reason it was drafted the way it was drafted. But I'm hoping the changes on any of this. But
I took no issue with it. I just okay to make sure it was the residential structure itself and not the property lines.
Right, it's a structure or a commercial building, residential structure.
Mr. Post.
Yes, sir. My question is on times. So am I understanding this correctly? I can shoot off fireworks until 1 a.m. on the 3rd, but I gotta stop at 10 on the 4th. What is the reasoning there?
The reasoning there is the reason I came up with that is, let's say most people, I guess standard society, and July 4th is the okay. So I actually I can do shoot off fireworks. July 3rd to maybe I start at midnight because that's the start of July 4th. And a lot of us don't have to work on July 4th because it's a holiday. But a lot of us do have to work on July 5th. Therefore I stopped at 10 p.m. instead of midnight.
I don't know if I agree with that. That's
I see the logic.
yeah, I do too.
Any additional questions? None from the board? How about from the audience? Just come up to the dais, give your name and address. Button right in the middle.
Okay, I already addressed y'all once. I have trouble understanding you for some reason. Anyway, layman's terms, when can we shoot the fireworks?
Let's go back 1 second if you wouldn't mind. Name and address.
Oh, Brenda Cadet, 613 East Clay Street here in Ozark.
Okay, perfect. Now go ahead and ask your question.
Okay. When are you saying we can shoot them? Okay.
Fireworks may be discharged on July 3rd between the hours of 9 a.m. and 1 a.m. on July 4th. And then on July 4th between the hours of 9 a.m. and 10 p.m.
So why are we doing it the 3rd? Let me tell you what I've done and then you can answer that question. I pulled up Willard, Springfield, Rogersville, Republic, Branson, Ozark, everyone that I could go up that I had time to. Springfield doesn't allow fireworks to be sold or to be shot off in city limits, period. Okay? And not one of these other towns allows it except the day of the 4th. One was from 11 till midnight, I believe it was. Another was 2 o'clock in the afternoon to midnight. Some of them were 10 o'clock till midnight. But not one of those towns allowed it except the 4th. The 4th is the holiday. We don't do Christmas on 3 or 4 days. We don't do Thanksgiving 3 or 4 days. July 4th is the holiday.
Yes, sir. Go right ahead.
Now, 11 to 12 p.m.
11 a.m. to 12 p.m. Or midnight.
Midnight. Midnight. No, 11 a.m. to midnight, July 4th. 10 a.m. to midnight, July 4th. And then some of them was 9 till 10, but it's only July 4th. We don't have an Independence Day. I've never heard of that.
It's a Kentucky thing.
Then make it earlier. That'd be fine with me. Make it to 11 a.m. to 10 p.m. Personally, I'd rather get rid of them completely. The city puts on a beautiful display. Right. But that's fine. That's fine. I don't have a problem with that. I mean, like I said, I'd rather have them done away completely. But this 4 days of shooting fireworks is ridiculous. Yeah, I didn't say you were. But it's not, that's what it is now. Because I looked it up. That's what it is now, 4 days. I can't believe they come up with that in the beginning. Why anybody would even ever come up with that? Whatever. I'm just for July 4th only, but get rid of them completely. That's all I have to say.
Thank you, Brent. Bruce, Mr. Galloway.
My feedback for what it's worth, I have to admit, I haven't given it analysis, but and maybe you can reply to what my thoughts are. I think that what your ordinance is attempting to do is just to kind of start pushing the holiday, shorten it a bit in terms of using fireworks. And we're just becoming, I think, you're thinking that we're becoming a bigger town. We have more subdivisions than we used to. It's kind of disturbing, I think, to neighbors to be exploding these things 8 hours and several evenings. Am I right so far? Okay. Yeah, I think I can get behind that, especially if it does seem like what Brenda was saying, you know, 4 days of fireworks celebration is a bit much in the city of Ozark. And one thing I did like about your proposal is, you know, you don't affect the sale of fireworks. You actually, I think you expand the period of time that they can be in operation. To me, that makes a lot of sense for those families that want to celebrate on the 4th their fireworks. The, so, you know, I could say, I could see limiting it to July 4th, but I'm not sure. I think 10 p.m. is kind of early. But it's on a single day, midnight or something like that. It's an inconvenience, but celebrating our country's birthday. So that's just a thought, and it might not be the right thought. So I'm just saying that those things kind of make sense to me, and they're suggestions that I have. But I'm not saying I would vote for it or against it. I'm just throwing it out there. On paragraph E, where it says any person discharging or causing discharge of the fireworks shall be responsible for removal of debris and litter. That's, to me, makes sense, but I'm a little curious about shall, although you're not allowed to trespass on a private property, I suppose, if you're not private, not onto your neighbor's yard, but you have to attempt to contact the owner of the property to offer cleanup. That seems to me to be kind of an enforcement issue there. Yeah, of course, that's what I'm doing. Saying. That's where my concern is putting the onus on attempting to contact the owner. I don't know if this would enforce that. And are you saying?
I'm saying they should just walk on the splash yard, start making that debris. They should go to the door, knock on the door and say, hey, you know, some of that fireworks out in your yard. Is it with you?
The intent of that section is so that you don't have a citizen complaint driven where the person who has the litter and debris on their property files a complaint, and then the person who's discharging the fireworks went to them originally and asked to come onto their property and clean it up. That would be obviously testimony that could be brought forward in any prosecution or investigation prior to prosecution. So really, this was not intended to impose any extra duty on the law enforcement side of things, but more on the prosecution side of things. In drafting the language that Alderman Campbell proposed, and as the prosecutor for the city, I tried to make it to where it wouldn't impose any further duty on the law enforcement, but it would really come out at trial or in the investigation for the trial.
Okay, I'm just, I'm wondering about that. Say that, well, I did my knock on their door, they didn't answer at 2 p.m.
That's what he says. I guess that would be legit. But, I feel like we have to have something in there. Number one, to make sure people clean up for free. That was an item that, I think even our public works gets behind. So number one, I was trying to say, you gotta clean up for free. The number two is, I didn't want to, put up or not burn. I didn't want to put the city in a position to where, people could read this and say, well, the city told me I could go up your property, clean it up. I didn't want the city to have the risk of somebody thinking we're giving them permission to trespass on somebody else's property. It's
That's, I got it, yeah, and then, C, that's the section, required to get express consent of property owners within 200 feet of, well, appreciating it on. In law, I think express has a specific meaning, like, correct me if I'm wrong, I think that has to be in writing. That I might suggest if we use it just to use words in writing, so people in the public might not understand that. Those are my states. Does it say, oh, at the end of it? Yes. Oh, I see what you're saying, yeah, correct. What about, doesn't that kind of eliminate most of the fireworks celebrations and subdivisions? That's mainly for you.
it doesn't eliminate the firework displays and subdivisions. What it does is, it eliminates your fireworks going on other people's property without them knowing it. If I go to, let's say 4 neighbors, let's say behind me, each side, across the road. If I go to my 4 neighbors and say, hey, I'm planning on shooting off fireworks at midnight tonight, and they, in writing, they sign off on that and say, that's fine with me. And, that's not saying I can't shoot off fireworks in subdivision. That's saying I can't shoot off fireworks in subdivision in my front yard or backyard or whatever. But I'm not. But I do have the permission of the people of the neighbors to disturb me. I'm letting them know I'm going to disturb them. So it's kind of allowing you to shoot some fireworks. At the same time, it's allowing a neighbor, if he doesn't want to sign that, it's allowing him to say, I don't want to listen to it. And therefore you would not be able to. It's not the city saying you can't do it. It'd be your neighbors saying you can't do it.
I'm just wondering how many people would want to go ahead and go around and take the measurements and then talk to their neighbors and just do the fireworks. That's, I guess.
I think you probably have some of those. I'm just like Miss Badette, is that correct? I'm just like her, and I think I'll let the mayor speak for himself. I think he was kind of looking at that on it. But I think shooting fireworks is a right or privilege that we need to afford to people to celebrate Independence Day. This is my opinion. But at the same time, I feel like that my next door neighbor, if he has an issue with it, if it hurts his dog's ears, or PTSD, or he's got to go to work on July 4th, he said, well, I'm not going to sign it. I don't listen to fireworks up to midnight, and he go to work next day. Okay.
All right. So I thought the 2
feet was interesting because I was kind of like you. I there was 3 issues that Spade brought up. It was the noise, trash, and potential property damage. But I got Google pulled up here. I'm just checking. No neighbor of mine within 200 feet has ever shot off fireworks since I've been in that house, and I have firework trash in my yard every year. So that's sort of my concern. Is I do agree that even at 200 feet, you may end up eliminating most of the personal displays, but 2 of those, at least 2 of those problems, the debris and the potential property damage still exist at 200 feet, and especially, this would be true for a lot of neighborhoods. I live on the side of a mountain for all intents and purposes, so you could easily go 500 feet up from my house, shoot off a firework, still drop it right on my house. Pretty simple. So I just don't know if that's the route we choose to go, using some sort of measurement like that and saying within this distance you need property owner's permission. I don't know if some 200 feet solar gets us the distance we need to make sure that everybody within the radius, I guess, of effect has given you permission.
Bring up one good point. Well, I'm not saying you ought to bring up one good point.
One was better than the rest.
But one point that kind of hit me there that I didn't think about is people that live downhill. What I did is I got on Wikipedia and I, Googled fireworks. The best thing I could find was on Wikipedia, just rocket fireworks, which basically says it gives you distances that consumer fireworks can travel. I doubled that distance. Consumer fireworks are basically low rate fireworks. They're not dynamite or something like that. Okay. So the best I could tell, and there really wasn't a clear place to find it anyway. You had to go by the diameter of the explosive on the end, and then you for every inch the diameter of the explosive, it will travel 100 feet. Now, what I did take into that, which is the good important thing, is that if I shot it from the top of a hill, it could easily travel a lot farther than 100 feet. The only thing I can say is, with what research I can find on it, and I searched several sites, 100 feet seemed like the best number I could come up with. I just doubled it.
1 inch powder to 100 feet.
1 inch, yeah.
Is that supposed to be up?
Actually, that's if you shoot it straight out, it's less. Okay, so it could go 100 feet up if it's 1 inch diameter, which I've never seen a ball rocket 1 inch diameter. I used to shoot M80s when I was a kid, and I don't think they were even 1 inch diameter.
Yeah, bottle rockets I see. I get the debris from the mortar shells.
Okay.
And then the actual little rocket looking things that are
What's the diameter though? The explosive part of that?
probably right at it.
Okay. Like I say, I did not take into account if you were shooting it down or something like that. You can change it if you want to protect it. Well, you've got a specific scenario for there. And if we need to,
I do think that the permission, the concept of getting permission, there's a group of people who don't care. I don't care. Everybody in this particular area wants to do it. You're not going to disturb anybody else. Why does anybody that's going to disturb it here? So I do think that's an interesting way of solving the problem.
All right, we'll get back to the audience here. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak on this bill? No? Oh, I'm sorry. There was so much going on over there.
I was curious too, see if anybody else in the audience. Okay.
Well, we were in the audience section. So
Yeah.
back to the
Yeah.
section.
Clarify
celebration for fireworks sales, June 20th through?
It was previously July 2nd, and we expanded.
Okay.
Which on the 4th, and we checked the state law. When I say we, I mean myself and Alderman Campbell. We ensured that those are the same time frames that are allowed under state law for the sale of those
I
fireworks.
never realized we could sell fireworks after the season.
Not in the city limits of Ozark.
Okay. I don't like your 10 o'clock on July 4th. I think people should be able to go to midnight. It's one day a year. We all know there's going to be fireworks. Yeah, it bothers my cat. I finally fall asleep listening to the fireworks, but I think it's kind of cool.
They don't bother. I'm just like you. I'm just like
It's
you.
it's a happy day of the year.
Yeah.
I'm not sure about July 3rd. I think if you want to do it one day, July 4th, that's the day of the celebration. But I think it should go to midnight. I'm not comfortable at all with asking people within 200 feet. I think there's going to be that one person that will say no. And I can just see neighborhood arguments and bad feelings, and I just think that opens up a can of worms. I don't think in a neighborhood you're going to find, if 150 homes are there, that you're going to find 150 people that will say, sure, let's do it. And then, so you get one person that says no, so their next door neighbor can't do it, but then the next door neighbor can do it because he's not within 200 feet of that person. I just think that first of all, it's confusing. I don't think it's fair. I think it's a nightmare to try to uphold that law. And I just think it's going to cause a lot of bad feelings.
Okay. I'd like to answer both her questions, or both of her concerns, if I could.
Sure.
I'm not opposed at all to modifying the hours, days, whatever. We just had to have a starting point here, and that's the way my mind worked. So I'm not opposed to modifying days or hours, time, whatever. Now, on your second point, I think in a civilized society, if you want to call it that, and I know we're not always, but in a civilized society, I would rather my neighbor, I probably got a house behind me that's probably from the edge of my yard to the house behind me, probably 40 feet. Well, even close to that on the side. I've got 15 feet on the side from me to the next house. I would rather my neighbor come to me and say, hey, I'm gonna shoot off fireworks. I'm gonna get debris in your yard. You're gonna get debris on your roof. I respect that neighbor more than I do the neighbor who assumes he can just shoot off fireworks. If they land on my roof, whatever. If they don't land on my roof, whatever. I think that's gonna make for bad neighbors more so than going to your neighbor and asking and let them know what you're doing ahead of time.
I think what would end up happening is the neighbor that was the 200 feet to the neighbor that didn't want it will go over to the next neighbor that's 210 feet and say, we'll do it at your house then. Now, the neighbor that doesn't want it's still going to hear all the fireworks. It's not going to stop.
No, he's not. You can't shoot them off within neighbors. You can't shoot them if you don't have written permission from all your neighbors.
If you're
within 200 feet.
Yes, if you're over 200 feet.
No, within 200 feet, not
Okay,
over.
so my statement was, you're going to get the neighbor that is within 200 feet that can't, because this neighbor says no, will go over to the next neighbor that's 250 feet, because then he's not affected by the neighbor that says no. Because he's 250 feet.
And you shoot him at his house?
Yeah, we'll just go over to your house.
Okay.
And the neighbor that didn't want them in the first place is still gonna hear it all.
If-
In my subdivision, we hear the person doing it at the end to the beginning. It doesn't mean that person that lives within 200 feet that doesn't want the fireworks is not gonna get fireworks. They're still gonna get fireworks.
I understand that. And I'm open if you want to increase that distance to 500 feet. I'm open to that.
I don't agree with putting any distance on it.
I can't go with that.
I think in our neighborhood, we do the right thing. As far as I know, I've never heard anybody complain. We go and pick up our debris. And we, that's the right thing to do.
I
And so
understand.
as a city, I don't think you can legislate and make people do the right thing by a law that is hard to actually make happen. I mean, who's going to do this? The police is not going to come and measure and say, yeah, it just seems like it should be done because it's the right thing to do. And I don't know, I mean, if you have a neighbor that doesn't do that, and then you go talk to that neighbor and say, you should pick up your
Okay.
stuff. It isn't a legislative thing for the city to try to carry out. It should be done by the neighbors or the people. I mean, do we have to? have a law?
So are you thinking we don't need to expect people to clean up their debris?
Yes, people should clean up their debris, but are we as a city to pass a law to try to make people do that?
I think so.
Oh, okay.
I'll say this. I can show you right now on North 12th Avenue in the city of Ozark, the little sticks or wires that come with the bottle rockets,
Mhm.
still laying in the street gutters today. And that was, I'm sure I know it was from July 4th.
Do you think this law, if we made this a law, would solve that problem?
I think what's going to solve the problem, and I touched on it at the initial meeting whenever Ms. Badette came and spoke on it. I think what I'm going to do, I'm just going to get behind it and do my best to educate people on what the law is. And the analogy I make to that is I'm also going to get behind letting people know that their dogs need to have a city license, need to have rabies shots and all that. I think it's more of a matter of educating the public than it is demanding what to do. I mean, we have laws that say you can't throw your garbage out of the car window when you're driving down the road. To me, this is no different than that when it comes to debris.
I'm sorry, I'll back up a little bit to
Okay.
make myself clear. I do believe, because you have two things in here, cleaning up should be, you could do a city ordinance.
Okay.
I guess what I'm having trouble with is getting the permission of somebody within 200 feet. I think that's what I have a problem with, is that I think that I can't do it because one of my neighbors says I can't do it. That's what I have a problem with.
Okay,
But then my neighbor next to me can do it because he's 210 feet.
Right.
He can do it.
Yeah.
But it's not going to keep the neighbor that didn't want to hear the fireworks from.
well, no, you're correct. What it's going to do is it's, according to the Wikipedia, and if you're not shooting it down the hill, it is going to keep you from shooting bottle rockets on top of your neighbor's house without letting them know first that there's a possibility that's going to happen.
I think on July 4th, we all think that's a possibility.
I agree. That's why you should have permission from your neighbor rather than just assume it's your right to shoot them up there. I don't think we should assume that it's our right to shoot it if it's going to land on our neighbor's house. I think it's better to let them know, make them aware of it first.
Thanks.
Mr. Gardner.
Eddie, I salute you for taking this on. It's a thankless task. I appreciate what Ms. Badette did because we need to address it. I think that the rules were entirely too loose. but we got to reach a consensus. And what we're doing is batting around a lot of opinions, and we're airing those out, but we're not getting anywhere as far as what are we going to do. So I would like to propose something concrete in the way of an amendment to your bill that we can. If it doesn't get a second, then it won't be approved. And if it gets a second, then we'll vote on it when the time comes. But I think that we need to, as far as section 1, paragraph A, fireworks regulations, we need to allow it only on the 4th and delete anything that's allowed on the 3rd. And I think we should change the times on the 4th from 9 a.m. until midnight. So those would be the only times. I propose no changes for the operation of the sales locations. And I propose that we delete paragraph C on the 2nd page about a 200-foot restriction. I would like to see something like that, but it's impractical. So I think the best thing to do instead of trying to regulate it is to delete it and just say you can discharge fireworks from 10 a.m. to midnight. And then as far as the paragraph E requiring the cleanup, keep it. It may be hard to, it may be hard to enforce, but if the intent is there, we need to keep it and make people responsible for cleaning up their own fireworks. So those are the 4 things that I would propose in the way of an amendment: to delete the 3rd, go from 10 to midnight on the 4th, delete the paragraph C with the 200-foot restriction. Those 3 things. And so I move to amend this bill 3301 to make those changes.
I just want to clarify one thing. You originally said 9 a.m. to midnight, and you said 10 a.m. to midnight. So are you sticking with 10?
Yes, 9 a.m. as it's written. Yes, thank you for that.
9 a.m. to midnight on the 4th. Only. Striking the section C, paragraph C. And then what was the 3rd piece of your?
It was a comment on E, but it wasn't an addition to it or striking it. It was just leaving the new paragraph E.
So your amendment is to change the language for fireworks will be permitted on the 4th only from 9 a.m. to midnight, and scratch paragraph C
with the 200-foot restriction.
Okay.
I move that. So moved.
All right. That amendment was made by Alderman Gardner and seconded by Alderman Flores. Sorry, I'm making notes.
It's all right.
All right, all in favor of the amendment? Well, there's the unanimous amendment.
Now, will that have to come back as a first reading?
Come back as a first reading bill at the next legislative session. Mr. Poston, one last comment?
Yes. So my only concern is, while that shortens all the time for all the bad things can happen, it solves none of the bad things.
Yeah, basically.
I'm not ready to do anything. I expect I will go on the very next meeting, but I don't feel like all the fireworks are created equal. I don't see a reason I can't use a sparkler year round, but shooting off a mortar shell, that's a big deal.
Oh, yeah.
Colors, and I know I don't know if we want to go down the road of regulating individual fireworks, given that names change and types change constantly, but they're not all the same. And I don't know as though we need to treat them all the same.
Well, we can make a start with making this change.
And I agree with that.
And then dig in a little deeper if you want to classify ones that make big booms and ones that go fizz. But I understand what you're saying.
Yeah.
I think what I'm hearing what you're saying is anything of an arterial nature, anything that's going to be projected into the air is something that you would want to limit, but ground effects or sparklers or whatever. Yeah. Okay. I just know as I sat here and I glanced at the chief is processing this information is how are we going to enforce any of these things that we do. I think that's what led originally to the extension of the times and hours was we had a hard time enforcing it. We all know the city of Ozark is unfortunately understaffed in our law enforcement division as it is. And then when you take in fireworks complaints over a month-long period of time, because the minute the stands open up in June, people will start discharging those fireworks. By the time our officers can stop doing the very important work and go to a nuisance complaint, it could all be packed up and put away. And now that officer has been taken off maybe more important calls. So those are all things that we have to figure out as we process through this. Are there any other comments regarding this bill? All right, it'll be held over the next legislative session, coming back as a first reading bill. Moving on to second reading, final passage of bills, Mr. Flores.
I move that we place bill 3294 on its second reading by title and short description only. Second.
Motion was made by Alderman Flores, second by Alderman Poston, place bill number 3294 on its second reading by title and description only. All those in favor?
An ordinance authorizing the city to enter into an addendum to extend the lease term of the real estate lease agreement with the Christian County Agricultural and Mechanical Society.
All right, any questions, comments regarding this bill? So once this is passed, I will try to convene with the lease committee. We'll start those negotiations with them on the ground and what they're looking for. The original proposed 3-year lease was not quite sufficient, I think, for our needs. And so we'll just go through that process. I know Samantha Payne will be working alongside me as we go through this process, and hopefully we can bring back maybe some good news. But I appreciate you guys giving us this 90-day opportunity.
I move that we adopt bill 3294 as ordinance 21-082. Second.
Motion was made by Alderman Flores, second by Alderman Poston, to adopt bill number 3294 as ordinance number 21-082. May I get a roll call vote, please?
Alderman Flores.
Aye.
Alderman Campbell.
Aye.
Alderman Gardner.
Aye.
Alderman Poston. Alderman Alder. Alderman Galloway. We have 6 aye votes. Motion carries.
All right, report of officers, boards, and committees. City Administrator, Mr. Childers.
I believe at the last meeting I may have mentioned that the salute to the community was on the 16th, and I made an error. The salute to the community is October 14th. That's a Thursday night. It's not a Saturday night. So I just wanted to clarify that. I believe the city clerk has probably already made you aware that. If not, you would have tell you that. But certainly we'll communicate with you to find out who is going. The salute to the community is something that's sponsored by the Ozark Chamber of Commerce. It is a really nice evening to be able to hear from the county, the chamber, the city, the school. It's just a great way to get a summary of all that's going on in the city and in your community and where that's going. So it's not only for the people that are sitting up here, it's for all of you as well. Go on the Ozark Chamber website and you can find the link to that. It's really a neat evening. And there are a couple of topics, kind of as we have discussed, that may warrant an additional meeting before the salute time. And so may send out a doodle poll just for a non-legislative, to find out your schedule for a non-legislative meeting. And I say that because of just the way the times fall. In October, that would have put us kind of at the end of the month, and we may need to have a meeting just sooner than that to just hit a few points of where we're going, just in the way that the events are starting to happen at the end of the month, at the end of the year. So we'll send something out and find out what the schedule is. I think it worked for everybody. But that's all I had, Mr. Mayor.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. There was a written report from Mr. Smith and Ms. Payne. Did you guys have anything in addition to that? Did anyone have any questions for them? No questions for them. Miscellaneous comments, announcements by the board. Floor is open. You can talk about anything you want except fireworks.
3 more days of summer, including today.
Okay. 3 more days of summer. Perfect. And we just celebrated Constitution Day the other day. So that Constitution Day gives us the ability to sit here and talk about fireworks. So that was very exciting.
Thank you, Brad.
Ms. Burdette, thank you for bringing the bill to us, and thank you for being here this evening. All right. If there are no other comments, I'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
All right. Motion was made by Alderman Gardner, seconded by Alderman Campbell, to adjourn this legislative session. All those in favor? It is unanimous. Thank you, everyone, for being here this evening.